You unlock your phone. You didn't decide to. Your thumb did it for you. It's the most ordinary thing in the world. You do it in elevators, at red lights, in the half second between one thought and the next. You do it when you're bored, and you do it when you're not. Except it wasn't an accident. It was designed, down to the millisecond, by some of the most talented engineers and psychologists alive. The average person now touches their phone more than 2,000 times a day. Heavy users touch it more than 5,000. That's not a habit. That's a relationship. And like most relationships you didn't choose, it's worth asking who's really in charge. Because here's the strange part. You already know it's too much. You've felt the little sting of picking it up for no reason. So why can't you stop? Let's start with the thing you think is happening. You think you check your phone because you're waiting for something, a message, a like, a reason. And sometimes that's true, but that's not why you keep checking when there's nothing there. To understand that, you have to meet a man who never touched a smartphone in his life. His name was B.F. Skinner, and in the middle of the 20th century, he ran one of the most important experiments in the history of psychology, using a box and a hungry pigeon. Skinner put a pigeon in a box with a small lever. Peck the lever, get a food pellet. The pigeon learned fast. Pecked when it was hungry, ignored the lever when it wasn't. Predictable. Boring, honestly. Then Skinner changed one thing. He made the reward random. Now the pellet came sometimes, not every peck, not on any schedule the pigeon could figure out, just sometimes. And the pigeon lost its mind. It pecked that lever compulsively, far more than before, long after it should have quit. Skinner had discovered something he called a variable ratio reinforcement schedule. Strip out the jargon and it means this. A reward you get on an unpredictable schedule is far more addictive than a reward you can count on. Sit with that, because it's backwards from what you'd expect. A guaranteed reward is satisfying, but an uncertain one is compulsive. The not knowing is the hook. Now, where in your daily life do you pull a lever, not knowing if this time there's a reward waiting? You already know the answer. It's in your hand. Every time you swipe down to refresh a feed, you are pecking Skinner's lever. Sometimes there's a new message, a funny video, a like from someone you were thinking about. And sometimes there's nothing. The nothing is not a bug. The nothing is the entire point. It's the empty pull that keeps you pulling. The man who built that specific motion into your phone was a designer named Loren Brichter. In 2009, he invented pull to refresh, that satisfying little tug where you drag the screen down and it springs back with new content. Brichter later said he felt uneasy about what he'd made, because a former Google design ethicist named Tristan Harris put it more bluntly. He said, "Your phone is a slot machine in your pocket. You pull the lever, you wait for the reward, and the house designed the odds." So that's the mechanism of the pull, but it doesn't explain the itch, the reaching for your phone when you haven't even gotten a notification. For that, we need to talk about a chemical you've almost certainly heard of and almost certainly misunderstood. Dopamine. You've probably been told dopamine is the pleasure chemical, the little hit of happiness you get from a like. That's the popular story, and it's mostly wrong. Dopamine isn't about pleasure, it's about anticipation. A neuroscientist named Wolfram Schultz spent years measuring dopamine in the brain, and he found something surprising. The dopamine doesn't spike when the reward arrives. It spikes just before, in the moment of expecting it. Dopamine is not the feeling of getting, it's the feeling of maybe. Think about what that means. The high isn't the message. The high is the half second before you see if there's a message, which is exactly the half second your thumb keeps chasing over and over all day long. And here's where it gets almost too clever, because when the reward is unpredictable, Skinner's pigeon again, the anticipation never resolves cleanly. Your brain can't build a stable expectation, so it keeps firing off little pulses of maybe, maybe, maybe. Uncertainty doesn't dull the craving, it amplifies it. So the phone isn't hijacking your pleasure, it's hijacking your hope. Now, you might be thinking, fine, But this is just how brains work. Nobody built this on purpose. Surely this is just an accident of biology meeting technology. It is not an accident. And this is the part I need you to really hear. There is an entire discipline devoted to this. At Stanford, a behavioral scientist named B.J. Fogg ran something called the Persuasive Technology Lab. Fogg taught a generation of Silicon Valley designers a simple, elegant model of how to change human behavior. He argued that a behavior happens when three things line up at the same moment: motivation, ability, and a trigger. Read that back and look at your phone through it. Motivation, the maybe, the dopamine, the not knowing. Ability, one thumb, one swipe, zero effort. Trigger, a buzz, a red dot, a banner sliding across your lock screen. Every notification you've ever received is Fogg's third ingredient, engineered and delivered straight to your pocket. Students who passed through that lab and that thinking went on to design the exact products now sitting on your home screen. One of them, Nir Eyal, wrote the playbook openly. His book is called Hooked, and it lays out a four-step loop that habit-forming products run you through again and again. A trigger prompts you. You take a simple action. You get a variable reward, sometimes good, sometimes nothing. And then you make a small investment, a post, a follow, a streak that quietly makes the next loop even easier to fall into. Trigger, action, reward, investment. Then again. And again. It's not a metaphor for what your apps do. It's the instruction manual they were built from. So let's count the forces stacked against you when you reach for your phone. There's a 100-year-old law of behavior that says randomness is more addictive than reliability. There's a brain chemical that rewards the wanting more than the having. There's a design model refined at Stanford. There's a billion-dollar industry whose revenue depends, quite literally, on how many times a day you look. That's the tension. It was never a fair fight. It was you, alone, against a machine specifically optimized to beat you. And it's been running that optimization on billions of people at once, learning what works every single day. And now, here's the twist, the part that feels backwards. You'd expect all this to make you happy. If your phone is delivering a stream of rewards engineered by geniuses, checking it should feel great. But study after study finds the opposite. A researcher named Gloria Mark at the University of California, Irvine, has spent decades measuring human attention. She found that the average time a person now spends focused on a single screen before switching away has collapsed to around 47 seconds. 47 seconds. And when she measured people's stress, she found that the more they switched, the higher their stress climbed. So the machine isn't even making you feel good. It's making you feel scattered and slightly anxious, and then offering you the one thing that promises relief, another check, which scatters you a little more. The reward and the wound are the same swipe. The psychologist Adam Alter, who wrote a book called Irresistible about exactly this, points out the tell. The very people who design these products often don't let their own kids use them. Steve Jobs famously limited his children's screen time. The chefs, it turns out, don't eat their own cooking. Now turn the lens back on your own ordinary day. Because this stops being a story about pigeons in Stanford labs the moment you notice it in yourself. Notice the reach. The next time you're standing in a line, or waiting for a kettle, or sitting in a small pocket of nothing, watch your hand. It will move before you decide. That's the trigger, the ability, and the maybe, all firing in under a second. You'll be halfway into the feed before you can name why. Notice the phantom buzz, the moment you feel your phone vibrate and it didn't. That's not a glitch. That's your brain so primed for the trigger that it starts generating it on its own. You've been trained so well you now cue yourself. Notice how the boredom you were trying to escape never actually gets solved, because a slot machine isn't designed to satisfy you. It's designed to keep you playing. Satisfaction would end the game. None of this means you're weak. That's the reframe I want to leave you with. You are not failing at willpower. You are up against an environment engineered by some of the most sophisticated behavioral science on Earth, aimed with precision at the oldest circuitry in your brain. Losing that fight through sheer effort was never really on the table. But there's a quiet power in what you just learned, because the whole system runs on one thing: the reach happening below your awareness, the thumb moving before the thought, the maybe firing before you notice you're chasing it. Every part of the machine depends on you not seeing it work, and now you can see it. So the next time you unlock your phone, and you didn't decide to, the next time your thumb gets there before you do, you'll know exactly what just happened. It wasn't random. It wasn't weakness. It was a lever, a chemical, and 100 years of design, all landing in a single, ordinary second. It wasn't an accident. It was designed. And the moment you can see the design, you stop being the pigeon in the box and start becoming the person watching the box, deciding, for the first time in a long time, whether to reach at all.